Welcome to Kunoichi Expert Talks, where we share actual insights on how to scale tech businesses the ninja way. Smart moves, real results. Today, I have on the call Jada from TravelPerk, now Perk, and I'm very excited to have this conversation because we're covering the huge rebrand of TravelPerk into Perk now. And for those of you who don't know anything about Perk, here are some background details about this B2B SaaS company. So, first of all, Perk is a global unicorn, a billion-dollar company that just raised $200 million in their Series E in January this year. And just November this year, so last month, they rebranded Perk into TravelPerk. And this shift really reflects that they're moving beyond the travel management platform into something much more bigger, an AI-powered all-in-one travel and spend management platform. So this product vision, this new vision eliminates the shadow work, so the unnecessary tasks of thousands of global teams. And why does this conversation matter today? Well, first of all, because we're in the middle of this transformational moment of Perk's rebrand, and it's the perfect time to really look behind the scenes and unpack what that really means, and the juicy details of what Jada can share about this marketing shift. And then, well, we'll explore what it takes to really rebrand a global unicorn, one of the probably biggest marketing challenges, and how those lessons then apply to scaling B2B businesses or SaaS companies. Our guest today, Jada Balster, CMO of Perk. So much for being here today, Jada.
Thanks for
Um,
having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Jada, would you like to give us a brief intro about yourself and how you ended up at Perk?
Yeah, for sure. So I joined Perk, formerly TravelPerk, September last year. And I mean, we'll get into it, but I will say it's been a ride, a wild ride. So I have been working in marketing, always B2B, always tech for coming up to 20 years now. I have worked across SaaS pretty much my whole career, really focused on bringing together both brand and growth marketing in one. And I know a lot of people like to specialize and kind of go, I'm a brand marketer, I'm a demand
Mm.
marketer. What I have really enjoyed throughout my career is really kind of being at the intersection of both of those. Um, so I joined TravelPerk in September, as I said, from Adobe, where I was at for nearly 4 years. Prior to that, I actually joined Adobe via an acquisition of a company called Workfront, who also went through a whole rebrand. So had some really nice experience there that have been able to pull into the world of Perk. And I guess the reason I joined Perk, there's actually a couple of things. So first of all, being a company whose roots were in Europe and growing globally and really expanding across into the US was a huge opportunity. I had actually spent most of my career doing the opposite, working in companies that started in the US and had branched into EMEA. So there was something really interesting about being able to reverse that experience and bring some of my experience from US based companies into this area where we're really focusing on our scaling in the US. Secondly, I think the opportunity to be in an organization that is solving a real problem, and you mentioned shadow work. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit, but as we think about the work behind the work in travel and spend, and that broadening out from travel and spend, it felt like a huge opportunity. And once I saw that problem, it was super obvious, and it was really exciting place to be. So yeah, it's been, as I said, a wild ride since I joined.
Awesome. Thank you for giving us that intro. And I'm sure it is very exciting at the moment at Perk. So yeah, let's dive into the rebrand. First of all, what's the moment when it became clear that Travel Perk needed to evolve into Perk? You already mentioned, the European focus, but yeah, maybe you can share some more details around that.
Yeah, so I think that there are a few things that have happened. So TravelPerk was 10 years old this year, and as a company, even as I was joining, when I saw and learned about the journey that TravelPerk had been on, being a travel company in 2020 and 2021 was not a great place to be. And what was so inspiring for me was the way in which TravelPerk handled that whole time and actually really built some amazing foundations for future growth, which has really happened since then. And so there was 10 years of history, 10 years of legacy, 10 years of really strong trust built with our customers. And when you've got that, you go, okay, changing the brand name, like there is an element of risk involved, and you have to think really seriously about like, is this actually going to be important? Is this actually going to be important strategically for how we move the business forward? Or is this a bit of a vanity project? Because sometimes changing the name of a company and doing rebrands can be done in more of a vanity way that when it's not critical to the business. But I think for us, the moment when travel stopped being the whole story of what we do, it really was important that we use this kind of moment in time to make that strategic pivot. And customers are now using Perk to solve a broader operational pain, and we wanted to make sure that that was represented. So TravelPerk has been, it was accurate historically, but actually not it was going to limit us strategically moving forward. So that was the point when we said, we want to respect the legacy of TravelPerk, but we know that we need to adjust as we move forward. And actually, that's how we landed on moving to Perk. And we debated a lot, as you can imagine. Do we need to have something completely different? Do we need to spend time really thinking through what else this could be? And we weighed up lots of different options and felt really good about the moving forward with the simplicity of Perk.
Yeah, so basically COVID was the reason why it was all initiated. But maybe just a follow-up question, you mentioned the strategic change to, 10 years and yeah, I mean basically the global pandemic that challenged a little bit the travel part. So this strategic change, was it like really something the new brand wanted to reflect on, being more a global player? And maybe you can talk a little bit about the shadow work that we mentioned initially.
Yeah, of course. So maybe if I rewind a little bit, so the beginning of 2025, we acquired a company called Yokoi, who are a spend management platform, incredible company with amazing technology. They have an AI lab in Zurich, like really forward-thinking, incredible technology. So we acquired them in at the beginning of this year, and we're not even through the year yet, and we've gone from them joining the TravelPerk family to this year. We have been working really hard to build this integrated travel and spend platform because we know that travel and spend is so integral and it's so integrated. Actually having one
Right.
solution that works together, that talks to each other, is hugely important for our customers. So that was kind of the reason of moving from travel to travel and spend. And yeah, let me tell you a little bit about the shadow work, 'cause I'm sure probably some of your listeners are going, what is shadow work? Um, so there's a few things. The story here is, when we started out, we knew that taking the friction out of travel for work was our mission. Like that was something that we really wanted to do. We wanted to remove those kind of manual, frustrating tasks. And what was really interesting is over the years, as we spoke to thousands and thousands of our customers, we noticed that the frustrations didn't stop at travel. It crept into so many different pieces of work. And we found that spend and spend management and managing expenses was a really, really important part of that. So we partnered with Forrester Consulting to do a research project around all of that work behind the work, the non-core work that people spend their time doing, whether that's booking travel, planning events, filing expenses, reconciling invoices, all of those pieces of work that actually hold people back from really focusing on what they were hired to do and the work that they want to do. And some of the findings were incredible. So we found that on average, employees lost around 7 hours a week to shadow work. And I mean, I think that number sounds quite a lot, but if you actually put it into perspective, so if you think about that at scale, if you're 1,000-person organization, that means that shadow work consumes like 7,000 hours of productivity every week, which is the equivalent of like hundreds of full-time roles lost. So we did this research with Forrester and actually put it out as we rebranded to Perk, and it's been so interesting. Like that concept of shadow work, as we call it, has really resonated with people. And I think anyone who spent time doing manual booking of travel with all the tabs open on the phone to different people trying to figure out all of these things and then going, and now I have to figure out how to manage expenses for this, spending all this time in spreadsheets. Like they know that pain, they know that feeling. So it's really resonated. So we've been telling that story and leaning into that message, which has been really powerful.
Yeah, I think everybody can resonate with some sort of shadow work. So thanks for
Yeah.
highlighting that. Moving into something that you also mentioned at the beginning of maybe your personal background, that you always wanted to focus on weaving brand and performance into your marketing actions. So how
Mm.
does that yeah, way of, the rebrand really like, is embedded now into performance and pipeline?
Yeah, so this is something I feel really passionately about, and I think you often get people talking about brand or demand or brand versus demand,
Right. Yeah.
which is my absolute pet peeve because for me, like brand and demand are one system and is one way to ensure that you have success. I think if you just focus on brand, then it can be very vague and performance becomes very expensive. If performance ignores brand, then growth stalls. And so, what we have really focused on at Perk over the last year is understanding that the two things serve different purposes, but work really, really, really closely together and are really important to each other. And I think a lot of organizations, especially in SaaS and when they're in growth mode, focus a lot on the demand capture side of things, like who is in market looking for a solution right now, and I want to capture as many of those people as possible. And that is absolutely fine. And we all want to capture the people who are in market without question. But I think where that can be really, really dangerous is that if you're not building that future demand, and we've all heard that stat that 95% of your audience are not looking at the moment. There's only 5% of buyers who are actually in market right now. And if we are focusing just on those 5%, we are missing out on the future 95%. So I really feel strongly that that huge portion of our future audience, we have to be warming up. They need to know who we are. They need to be inspired by us. They need to be learning from us. So as we think about our brand, we absolutely want to get awareness and we want them to know who we are. But we also want to be building a trust and a reputation and credibility of being able to provide interesting and actionable information as well. So those two pieces are really important in building the funnel for the future. And then, of course, our demand engine, we have an incredible demand team who are constantly optimizing to make sure that when those people are coming into market, we are top of mind, and then we are obviously then starting to interact with them. So I think that's I guess, one call to marketing
Mm.
leaders is, really, I think it's really important to try to educate and get your leadership team on the same page that like this, brand is not a fluffy thing. Brand is absolutely about the growth of the future. And if you don't invest in it and you don't invest in that 95% who are not in market, you're going to find yourself in a really difficult position in the future.
Right. And I think a lot of brands are reluctant to invest in brand because it's hard to measure and it's
Yeah.
hard to see the direct impact. And I love that post I saw on your LinkedIn where you saw someone taking a picture of a billboard of one
Yeah.
of the campaigns. And yeah, like just to following up on that, like how do you measure the impact of brand? Do you have like specific tools how to track that?
Yeah, so there's definitely a few different ways in which we're measuring it. So that post you refer to. So while that is not measurable, that is definitely one of those things that gives you the feeling. And for anyone, any of your listeners who didn't see it, so someone had posted on LinkedIn that they saw our billboard in London Bridge and got off their line bike to take a picture of it because they thought it was great. And as a marketer, like, that made my day, week, month. Yeah, exactly. It really did. It was great to see that, people are seeing it and responding. So that's one thing on the feeling side, but also I would say on the feeling side that the internal pride and feeling that you get, it's so interesting the amount of people that have said to me, my gosh, when you launched that brand, my LinkedIn was green. Like all I saw was perk everywhere. And so much of that was because of the employee advocacy around it. And I actually have had quite a few questions around, like, did you coordinate that? Like, did you give all of the employees posts that they had to put out? Absolutely not. There was none of that. There was just a real sense of pride around the company and what we're doing and what we're putting out there, and that is really, really powerful. So there's definitely some, there's always some feeling stuff with brand that's important, but in terms of then the hard measurement, because of course we have to be able to measure. So there's a few things. So we made our brand investment extra complex because we did it at the time of launching a new brand. So actually, one of the things that that I've been talking to the leadership team about a lot is if we were just investing on top of the TravelPerk brand, the results that we would be seeing will actually be different than the results that we see initially based on the Perk brand. Because when you do things like a web migration where you're bringing different websites together, actually there is a time where you have to then have, you have to have time for Google to start indexing it, and you actually need to build that performance back up. So the brand has actually really helped us with accelerating the performance of our migration and all of the things that go around it. So we've got the first few months, we are very much tracking our pre-perk benchmarks and getting back to those as quickly as possible. And so we have core metrics that we are looking at around the website, around Google, and around AI search and all of those things to make sure that we get back to our benchmarks as quickly as possible. Then we've said we've got other leading indicators that we've defined primarily from kind of month 3 onwards that will just really help us give a good idea of how things are performing. So brand searches and web traffic at the very top of the funnel. We have done a brand awareness survey with an external provider. So we did it pre-launch. So we had again a benchmark, and then we'll be doing that every 6 months. And then we're looking at, more metrics like demo requests on the website. We have a drop down for, travel spend or travel and spend. Travel and spend was not an offering, so it's new. So actually looking at the percentage of people who are requesting demos for travel and spend, which is our new offering. So there's lots of different metrics that we are keeping an eye on as leading indicators. The other thing that we're doing, which I think is really interesting, and we've had some interesting early insights. And actually, this was a suggestion as I was talking to lots of other brand marketers ahead of the launch, like, how do they measure? Because that's always the $1 million question. One of the things that someone had suggested was really looking at geolift studies. So we actually, in the US, for example, huge market for us, we have significantly invested in a few cities, and then we have control cities that are very similar in terms of historical performance for us that we did not invest in. So we didn't do out of home, we didn't do publications within those states, like various different things. And we have benchmarked pre-launch, and then post-launch we're looking at things like web traffic, brand searches, those types of things, so we can say, okay, when we invest in brand in this city versus this city, we're seeing this lift. So that's been already, we're only 4.5 weeks in, and we're already seeing some really great leading indicators there.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you were talking about the pride and like the success, which you can definitely see. My LinkedIn feed was also very green. Let's talk about a bit the challenges about the process behind the scenes. So, which were like the biggest, stepping stones and problems or challenges that you faced in rebranding this global unicorn?
Yeah, so a couple of things I would call out. And as I said, I have been through this before as well, so it's nice to learn some lessons and been able to apply them this time round. I think one of the risks that you can fall into is that it becomes like a marketing rebrand. Like this is a marketing thing, as opposed to this is the next step in the evolution of our business. And really, really lucky. Our whole leadership team were really behind this and really believed how important this was going to be for the future of the business. And so, marketing and product specifically worked hand in hand. Our product team, as you can imagine, bringing these different products into one integrated platform this year have done an absolutely incredible job. And marketing and product have been hand in hand this whole way through, of kind of saying this is what we are working together towards to get Perk to the finish line. And then as we talked about earlier, as you then saw on launch day, launch week, it definitely was not a marketing project. You could see that across the whole company, everyone felt truly invested that this was the next phase in our journey. So I think that is one thing that's really, really important, is making sure that anything like this doesn't become a marketing project. The other piece is, obviously I talked about the 10 years that we had of the TravelPerk brand, and there is legacy, there is trust, there is advocacy for that brand. So really thinking through how you maintain some of that, how you don't feel like you're killing off this legacy equity and losing trust. I think that is always a real challenge. And obviously for us, maintaining the perk piece of the name helped a lot. We had a very clear and thorough communication plan around how we were communicating this to our customers. We have an incredible customer advisory board who we actually talked to about this early. We told them what we were doing. We talked to them about our communication plan and what we were thinking. We actually got some great feedback from them around what they would like to see in terms of how this gets communicating to make sure that we didn't lose trust and that our customers felt really comfortable with this process. So that was really, really important. And I would say that probably the last thing was just that, like, anchoring everything in the customer problem, which is this shadow work piece, and
Mm.
making sure that, as I said, this didn't just feel like a visual rebrand that was for a vanity reason. It was all anchored in this customer problem. And that became a shared language internally. Everywhere you go at Perk, people are talking about shadow work. And that's been really, really important. And I think unless you have those key alignment pieces, and you have that anchoring around a customer problem, that's when you can come across challenges.
Yeah, I love how you rephrase the challenge already into lessons.
Yeah.
So apart from these lessons that you just shared, and I love the part that it's not a marketing thing. And I think TravelPerk, when I used to work at TravelPerk in the early days, I mean, I was one of the first marketing hires. It was already like the small company. I think we were 30 people, and already then you could feel like this coherency. And yeah, we're a team and we're doing it all together. And it's great that this essence could be kept now that you're almost 2,000 employees. And I think that's like really one of the core pieces, like moving together as a team and feeling that pride of sharing
Yeah,
it with the world. So apart
definitely.
from those lessons, are there any other advices that you could share for CMOs or marketing leaders in a similar transition?
Yeah, so I think th there's definitely a few lessons learned, a few things that I think have been really important to the success of this. So I mentioned it earlier, but aligning the business, aligning product, aligning marketing, aligning sales, aligning the brand team, aligning the people team, bringing everyone together before you launch around this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is the impact it's going to have. Also, like, these are some of the issues it's going to cause that we need to be prepared for. We had a very, very thorough and detailed plan cross-functionally around how we were going to work together on this launch, but getting everyone feeling like this is they own this. This is everyone in the company owns this. It's really, really important. So I think that would be the first one. The second one is for us the shadow work story and naming the problem that we are solving better than anyone else has done was really important because changing your look and feel, changing your name can just feel cosmetic. Really anchoring around the story and the problem that our customers are facing and making that the hero piece of the rebrand was super important internally and externally. I truly believe everyone internally within Perk truly understands now the problem we are trying to solve for our customer, and that's really, really important. And I think the third one for me is like being brave, as a B2B business, it is so, so easy to just play it safe. And hopefully you've seen, and hopefully some of your listeners will have seen some of our campaign. So we lean into this said no one ever language, which is all about kind of telling the truths of what people see. And, it's not traditional B2B, it's not playing it safe. Our color palette's bright, our tone of voice is bold. And actually, if you want to cut through and you want to stand out, like you have to be brave, you have to have courage. And so I think leaning into that is really, really important. So they'd probably be my three big lessons.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, boldness and bold partnerships with Audi also in the Formula One is definitely something that calls the attention. But yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, I love the humoristic and a little bit sarcastic part of, playing it. Bold, yeah, it's a bold move. So yeah, any last recommendations moving into the next year, 2026, on how leaders can think bold in terms of brand demand and revenue alignment, or any other, yeah, like recommendations they can, maybe incorporate into their planning.
Yeah, I think, on the bold theme, I would say, marketing leaders, creatives, brand leaders, like they're often not short of ideas. I think what is important is having the courage to take things forward. The other thing I would say as well is having the courage to stick with things as well. Sometimes I definitely think, first of all, we get bored of our own campaigns before the rest of the world does. And actually, have the courage to say, we might feel like we've seen this over and over and over again. I've seen 10,000 versions of Said No One Ever, but this is actually still new to many, many people in the market. So having the courage to stick with things, but also like the time, you need to have the courage when your CFO saying, right, Jada, we're 3 weeks into the rebrand. What's the impact? Being able to say, okay, so these are the metrics that we aligned on pre-launch. This is where we are. Remember, this is where we said that we're going to get to, and this is when we will have that. And so having the courage to say, I'm holding strong. I believe that this is the right thing to do. And this is the time when we pre-agreed that we're going to have these metrics and when we're going to make some assessments, is really important. So I think, that courage in lots of different ways as a marketer is something I would say, where possible, people need to try and lean into for sure.
Yeah, be comfortable in the uncomfortable, maybe to hold that that space.
Exactly, exactly, for sure.
All right, just like some closing questions of
Yeah.
this talk. Is there anything exciting coming up for Perk, apart from everything we already were excited by in the past weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an exciting time. We've launched our new travel and spend platform. We do have another little announcement coming up after Christmas, which is very exciting as we continue to, really focus on our mission of tackling shadow work wherever it lives in the organization. So more to come there in the new year. And we are really just focused on supporting our customers and building the best global platform that we possibly can. So I would say the same mission, but bigger ambition. And, and then thinking about how, we are really using that mixture of AI with human expertise to make sure that we are tackling shadow work for our customers. So it's exciting. 2026, I'm sure, is not going to slow down. But yeah, watch this space for more news in January.
Yeah, well, excited about those news and those post Christmas presents that you will share. And anything
Definitely.
about yourself, where can people find you or learn more about your work?
Yeah. So for me personally, I please connect with me on LinkedIn. Love having especially fellow marketers in my network. Love seeing what everyone's doing and being inspired by the people. So LinkedIn, it's Jada Balster. On Instagram, Jada Balster. So yeah, would always love to connect with marketers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jada. We'll tag your profiles in the notes. And yeah, thank you for sharing so many insights and actionable topics that people can already integrate into their 2026 strategy. And yeah, that's the wrap up for today's session on the Kunoichi Expert Talk. If you found that useful, please share or tag someone who's into B2B SaaS marketing and follow us, and see you next time.
Thank you.